Well, hey, welcome to our podcast, Chasing Squirrels with Pastor Mike. We are on episode number 10, finishing up the second round of our parable draft. So Pastor Tom has the last pick in the second round. Pastor Tom has the last pick in the second round. So I hope they haven't stole all your ideas, but where are we at, Pastor Tom, with the last pick?
So I had 3. They were solid until you stole my last one.
Oh, man.
I had to come up with the backup, which I did.
Sweet.
So, and I'm surprised this one hasn't been taken yet. It's the parable of the lost sheep.
Parable of the lost sheep.
So that is in Matthew Matthew chapter 18, verse 10. And I have the non-Toys R Us New King James Version Bible, as one of my pastors or my teachers would say at my school that I used to go to.
Can you say it again?
Matthew 18, verse 10.
Okay, I was in Luke.
So, I mean, I can read it for you too. That's cool. So verse 10 starts out, it says, "Take heed that you do not despise one of these little ones, for I say to you that in heaven their angels will always see the face of my Father who is in heaven. For the Son of Man has come to save that which was lost. What do you think? If a man has 100 sheep and one of them goes astray, does he not leave the 99 and go to the mountains to seek the one that is straying? And if he should find it, assuredly I say to you, he rejoices more over that sheep than over the 99 that did not go astray. Even so, it is not the will of your Father who is in heaven that one of these little ones should perish." So I think this parable is very, very impactful and also a lot of times misinterpreted, which can be kind of interesting to talk about, I'm sure.
Yeah, there's a new misinterpretation that I had never heard before.
I think I talked to you about it, right?
Yes, you have talked to me about that. But let's talk about what it actually means first, and then we can get into that.
Well, I believe this is like the heart of God, right? Like, he's going to come after us.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that's really just what it's about. And like, God rejoices when we come back, right? And he rejoices when he finds us, but he also rejoices over the 99, which is what a lot of people overlook. But
absolutely. We see this concept, the lost sheep concept. You know, last time was the 11th hour. You've got the Good Samaritan, there's so many, the prodigal son. So many of these parables are about the value of the person to God.
Right.
And this is just another one of those indicating that any individual missing from the group is a person that grieves the heart of God because they love that person and they want to see them found and brought in.
Yeah. I think, and I just think the idea that God he put so much value on the lost, right? Jesus came for the sick. He didn't come for the healthy.
Right.
Like, yes, the healthy may be important, but he came so that the sick would come.
Right.
Right.
And so, but I think, just the fact that God is willing to leave the 99, as it says, to come after us is crazy. But also the 99 are still, he still takes care of the 99 at the same time.
Yeah. Explain that one, because I had never heard the interpretation of the parable of the lost sheep the way that you explained it, and I never knew anybody misinterpreted it that way. So how do people misinterpret it?
Yeah, well, I mean, first off, there's the separation of the 99 and the 1, right? And so a lot of people will think this is, I've heard someone explain it to me, people will leave the 99 people that are good, right? They're all fine, to go after the 1, and then just leave them astray is what some people will interpret as, right? And God just totally takes his presence from the 99 people and goes solely entirely after the 1, which I understand why some people may interpret it that way, but I don't think that is right.
I don't understand how people can interpret it that way, because it's about including the 1 with the 99.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
whereas leaving the 99 entirely to go after the 1, which is a lot of
the word leave a little too.
Yeah, not abandoning the 99, not forsaking the 99.
Yeah, because they're safe, right? They're still safe when.
Yeah, exactly. They're in the safe place, and so the 99 are kept safe. but then the one is also noticed
Right.
and gone to be rescued.
Well, and it's clear in this parable, he takes the one back to the 99
Right.
and rejoices and throws a party, right?
Right.
Exactly.
And so that's, I mean, again, this is a parable, so it's not like a legitimate thing that happened, but
It's not a historical event.
yeah,
Correct.
that's what I'm trying to say.
It's a
Sorry.
story.
Historical.
Very
thing that happened.
legitimate.
It's a very legitimate story, but it may not be a practical thing that actually happened. He's
Right.
saying a story of it. And so but I don't want people to be like misinformed when it comes to this, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
Like don't idolize the one running away.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
you know what I mean?
Right.
And
yeah.
cause you're bringing them back to the family. And I think, yeah, maybe this may be a bit of a stretch to think about that as like a misinterpretation or whatever. But I think it's important to understand.
Well, I think if you devalue the 99,
Right.
you're grossly misinterpreting
Well, yeah.
this parable.
Yeah.
The idea is to reunite the one with the 99, not to somehow devalue the 99.
Yeah.
It is to value the one,
So much to bring them back to the 99.
very important,
Yeah.
but not to devalue the 99.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an odd interpretation.
I think where they might get that is in verse 13. It says, and if he should find it, assuredly I say to you, he rejoices more over that
Right.
sheep than over the 99 that did not go astray. I think that's where people kind of take that and go, oh, so if I'm just being a good Christian, like
Yeah.
God doesn't care as much about me, then as he's more excited, which obviously is not the whole point of this parable.
Right.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And the idea isn't that if it was that specific one, but if it had been one of the other 99, he wouldn't care. It isn't that.
No.
It's that when you have something and you haven't lost it, there's not an emotional reaction. There's not you just don't notice that. But when you actually lose it and then you find it, like if you lose your car keys and then you find your car keys, like, oh, great, I got my keys. But if you didn't lose them, you don't go, oh, great, I didn't lose my keys.
Yeah.
And that to me is what this is talking about is when the one is lost,
Yeah.
there's all of a sudden this panic and, oh no, there's one that's missing.
Yeah.
And then when you find it, there's the relief and the joy, but it isn't a devaluing
Right.
of the others.
I think it is like, he's got the shepherd has his sheep, and he's not a shepherd where one goes astray and he doesn't notice. You know, because sometimes I feel like
Yes.
we have family members, we have people where you feel like people are going astray, and you're like, Lord, do you not see them?
Right.
This is communicating. I see them. I am so passionate for them, and I think it's just kind of answers some of that where we feel like, Lord, do you see these people that are going astray and stuff? And this parable is saying, yes, I do.
Right.
And I care about them so much,
And that is a powerful thing when it comes to the church, So one of the big battles in church is trying to keep the congregation outwardly focused instead of inwardly focused.
Mm-hmm.
When the congregation is thinking about, I want to sing songs I like, I want to do things I like, I want church to meet my needs.
Right.
Then now they're looking internally rather than looking out. Where's the lost sheep? And I've had people criticize me and almost attack, I would say, strongly come against my ministry philosophy because it's like, hey, you should be catering to the people in the church rather than trying to reach people who don't know Jesus.
Yeah.
And to me, like once we don't notice the lost, we have failed.
Right.
And it's very clear that we need to not just like, oh, well, we got church, we got people coming, we got the bills paid.
Right.
I guess we'll just, enjoy it and wait for Jesus to come. No, it's our responsibility to look for the lost sheep, for the hurting, for the people who need God, and to not be satisfied with just meeting our own needs on the inside of the congregation.
Yeah.
That's missing the heart of God. And so this never, I don't think anyone should, let's see, that might be a little too strongly stated.
Oh boy.
Once you're a believer, you should not think of yourself as the one. You are the 99. So if you know enough to talk about the one versus the 99, you're one of the 99.
Sure.
You're not you're not the one. The one is lost, is out there, who doesn't know their way home,
Right.
doesn't know how to get safe,
Right.
needs someone to rescue them.
Right.
If you are a believer and you have left, you're a prodigal,
Yeah.
not a lost sheep. And I think for me,
That's huge.
the difference between a prodigal and a lost sheep is the prodigal knows the way home, the lost sheep does not.
Right.
Yeah, because lost.
Right, because it's
Yeah,
lost. It's
needs to be found. Yeah.
Right. And is confused and doesn't know what to do. But the prodigal son knew the way home, just didn't want to go home.
Right.
Yeah.
And the tactics used are very different in the parable of the prodigal son. The father lets the prodigal son go, lets them have the experiences and then come home
Yeah.
because they knew the way home and they needed to come to their senses and realize
Right.
what they were missing.
They didn't go seek after the prodigal, right?
Right. Chasing the prodigal would just make the prodigal run farther
farther, yep.
away.
Yep.
But going to find the lost sheep is how you rescue the lost sheep.
Oh yeah.
And so it's very important to know the difference. And any Christian who wants to be a lost sheep and be chased by the church or be chased by other believers is just a prodigal and needs to come to their senses and come home.
Come on.
But the person who doesn't know Jesus, who is thinking this life isn't worth living and I don't know what to do, and there's no love, there's no joy, there's no purpose. That person needs someone to come to them and say, you know what, there is love, there is joy, there is purpose.
Come join our family.
You can be part of a family. You can connect with the creator of the universe. You can
Right.
have significance in this life and everlasting life. That there are answers to your questions and you can come in and receive those things. And they're like, what? I thought that was baloney. I thought that's, mythology and just ridiculous people falling in love with an imaginary friend. And like, no, this is actually real, and you can help them see that. And that's reaching out to a lost sheep. But the person who knows and is just like got an attitude, that's a prodigal.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Jesus showed us practically what he meant. So in Luke chapter 15, it's the same parable, but we have more details. And so it says, now the tax collectors and sinners were all gathering around to hear Jesus, but the Pharisees and the teachers of the law said, this man welcomes sinners and eats with them. So I think this is like very practical and like clear for us to understand. Like he didn't abandon the teachers of the law. Like he spent time with them too. Like sometimes he was hanging out with them and answering questions. But right now he was talking to the tax collectors and sinners and spending time with them and eating with them. So I think that's what he meant to take care of the lost sheep.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
And even it says like, do not despise one of these little ones is what it says in Matthew 18:10, right? Like, so clearly there was like this tension going on. Like these people are running away in these religious mindset. People were like, they're running. And Jesus was like, pause, let me explain. And then he explains this.
Exactly. And take it from a church perspective. If, let's say, somebody just, all of a sudden gets confused and walks away from God and doesn't know what's going on, and they're not a prodigal, they're actually lost.
Or hurt by the church. Or,
right. They're just, confused and hurt and don't know where to turn.
Sure.
We should be looking for them and trying to help them.
Right.
Yeah.
But we could also just say, you know what? They're mad at us and we don't know what's going on, and just leave them be and not care.
Right.
And we need to be looking out and caring about people.
Right.
And it can be difficult, I think. There aren't just the two simple categories of lost sheep,
Yes.
prodigal son.
There's more.
They're 100% separated.
Yeah.
Some people are a little bit of each and that sort of thing.
Sure.
So
I think something that I want to encourage people when they're reading parables is, like you said, the Bible doesn't necessarily it doesn't contradict itself. It comes at things at different angles, correct?
Yeah.
And so parables, like they're similar stories, but there's a heart behind the parables.
Yeah.
And so when you're reading these parables and reading really anything in the Bible, but like especially these parables, because they're not so like concrete and 100% makes sense. And I think Jesus meant it that way.
Oh, yeah.
Is to understand the heart behind it, right?
absolutely.
And that heart is always like there's value on the lost,
Yep.
And that's like where I think this parable is getting at, is there's value on the lost. Let's go find them and let's go preach the gospel. Let's go tell them about this life change that we've experienced, and not be so like up on our high horse that we're so good and they're just not a part of us, because that's false. Because when you're in that mindset, you're probably not so good, you know?
Right.
But and so like that's where I think that heart of a lot of these parables are that, but also just like finding and reading, or when you're reading, find the actual like heart behind the message.
Absolutely. If you're looking at it to think, what's the heart of God? What is Jesus trying to express to people?
Sure.
Clearly in the lost sheep, he's expressing the value of the person who has wandered into things and doesn't know how to come home. The value of that person. We're not to be disgusted by that person. We're not to blame that person. We're not to think, oh, you know, like, well, God never loved them in the first place and create some bizarre theology. We're to go after them and try to help them. You know, that's the clear indication, is the value of the individual that doesn't know God.
Right.
And so let's go find them.
And don't try to wrap the parables around your reality. Like, don't try to read the parables to fit into your narrative. And that's the hard part when it comes to this, because we see things from a worldly perspective. God wrote these from a godly perspective, or Jesus said these from a godly perspective, right? And so, I don't know, just encouraging anyone is just to really read and find the heart behind the parables as a whole. Because
there's a point Jesus is trying to make that normal people can understand.
Yes.
You know, it doesn't have to be, eighth level of abstraction theology. This can be just basic, simple. What's Jesus trying to tell people? He's trying to tell people that everyone is valuable.
Yeah.
That 99 out of 100 isn't enough. Right. That last one that's out there is valuable and noticed by God.
Right.
And that's where I've had people use the in a derogatory sense, you know, like church isn't a numbers game. You know, like it's not about the numbers.
Sure.
Well, okay, it's not about your pride and bragging about your church statistics.
Sure, yeah.
But it's certainly about the individuals who don't know Jesus, who need to be brought in. And was 99 out of 100 good enough for Jesus?
No.
Not at all.
And once he got that 100, I bet he was going for 101.
And we're at about, 18, I think, out of 100. You know, we got to leave the 18 to go find the 82.
Oh,
you know what I mean? It's like in American society.
Sure. Okay,
we're very much not having the 99 and leaving the 99 for the one.
Right.
You know, there's very few, I should say it this way, there's so many that need to be found, that need to be connected with the love of God, the forgiveness of God, new life in Christ, purpose in Christ, everlasting life. There's so many people who need to be connected with that, we've got a lot of work to do. And if we just hold up in our nice little Christian communities and pretend that we're better than everybody else and are scared of the world, instead of going out to go find some people, then we're missing the point of this parable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I heard there was a time, maybe before my time, where people were like just knocking down doors of churches because they wanted to be a part of it, right? And then now I think we're finding we're in a moment where we really need to go out, especially now more than ever, and find people and
absolutely.
And yes, make the church good enough for people to come into, yes, but like when you do those community outreaches or those just being, I think, someone walking a Christian faith walk to other people, like that's you finding them, right? And when you find them, that's when they come. I believe it's
and the
that
way
heart
that
change.
the lost sheep is found is almost never from a church program.
Right.
It's from an individual living out their Christian faith at their workplace, at their school, in their family. That's where the lost sheep is found, because the lost sheep isn't at the church event.
Right.
There are prodigals, and there can be people invited and that sort of a thing, but generally speaking, I was not going to wander into a church.
Right.
It was just simply not going to happen. There was no reason for me to do that. I wasn't like running away from the church. It just would never have crossed my mind. Why would I do that?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like, it just wasn't going to happen. It was about people talking to me. That's how I found Christ, is by people who knew Jesus talking to somebody who didn't know Jesus.
It's that relationship, right, with the person.
Absolutely. And that's where the lost sheep is found. I believe there's vitally important work for the church to do.
100%.
As far as programming and services and even outreaches. That's where you can catch the fringe people.
Right.
But the person who's truly just out there, they're not coming to the outreach. They're not coming to the church service.
Sure. How do we, because I do agree with that. How do we interpret in verse 12, if a man has 100 sheep? So kind of saying he already has that 100 sheep and one of his goes missing is kind of what it seems, and one of them goes astray. Does he not leave the 99 and go into the mountains to seek the one straying? And so it kind of gives the impression that he already has the 100 sheep. And I feel like people could take that, definitely as like, my congregation is my 100 sheep, or, that kind of a thing. I don't know. How do we interpret that? Because he seems to be saying like he had those 100 sheep. It wasn't like I had my 99. I felt like finding another one, I guess,
Right. I think this could be maybe overthinking the parable.
Okay.
But when you go to Luke 15, you've got the lost coin and the lost sheep, and they're the same parable.
Yeah.
Here it's the lost sheep. And, it really is about trying to create a heart connection with the heart of God for people. And so it isn't really about, is it 100 sheep? Is it 110 sheep?
It seems
Do we
to just-
have sheep?
It seems to come from a place of already possession, even with the lost coin, like it was already in her possession, but she lost it. I feel like one of the interpretations that's coming from
I guess
it.
what I would maybe, I haven't really thought along these lines, but just to explore a little bit, I would think of it maybe from this perspective that, God has created that individual for communion with him, for everlasting life. And, it's, as we read before in 2 Peter on a previous episode, it's his will that none perish, but all come to repentance. And so each person that's lost is someone created in the image of God, created for a purpose, and is not connecting with that purpose, is not, so that's someone that God knows, has made, has a plan for.
Supposed to be a part of the group.
And it might not be that I know that person or, or, but that this is someone that truly God has lost rather than someone the church has lost or individuals have lost. But just trying to get us to feel that same feeling that God feels when someone is missing.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then we can catch it, catch the heart of God.
Yeah.
Well, I think going back to when you're talking about like the church still has an important role in this, like, yes, the one person that will go out and speak to people is obviously very important.
Right.
And I think that is like amazing if that happens. Like that's the best. But like there still needs to be a place where that family can grow together.
Absolutely.
And so I think having the church be a place that's just, I think I heard someone else say this, but whatever, it doesn't matter. Like having the church be worthy of people to come back to, like a home worthy enough for the people to come to is important.
You have heard somebody say that.
Was it you that said that?
I have said that. I don't know how many other people have said that.
Well, yeah.
With regards to the prodigal son,
right.
The idea
or even the lost
is,
sheep in this case too.
Be worth coming home to, or be worth being rescued to. Like if I heard a tragic story one time on the radio, and the pastor who was telling this story was, you could hear the heartbreak in his voice. And a gang member, I think the church was in California.
Sure.
Gang member got saved, was coming to church, was one of the greeters, all covered in tattoos and just super excited
Sure.
about serving God. And then, some months went by and now that person wasn't there. And one of the staff pastors said, "Hey, have you seen so-and-so around lately?" And the senior pastor was like, "Now that you mention it, I haven't." And he said, "Yeah, that's because he's not attending anymore." And I had a conversation with him, and the conversation went like this. He said, when the former gang member said, "You know what, when I got saved, I thought the church would be kind of like the gang, where we'd all be together, we'd have each other's backs,
Right.
we would, be in it together. And it's just my fault. I didn't understand that, you just sort of show up and you go home and everybody lives different lives.
Oof.
And it isn't really a family. I was under the wrong impression. So, this just isn't the place for me. I need that connection."
That's sad.
And
That's super sad.
and the way that pastor was speaking and his voice was cracking and you could just feel the pain of, and then he said afterwards is like, who are we as a church when a gang is a better family than we are?
Right.
Right. Oh my
Who are we?
Yeah.
And he just was broken. And, there's not an easy answer. Like, do I need 100 hours a week from everybody so that we can all be together and have this family cult thing going on that you have to or can people live a normal life and come to church on the weekends and, maybe attend a small group and, is that okay too? Some people need more than that.
Right. And if you have space for that,
Yeah.
that's where they'll cultivate and grow in that
But
relationship.
it's hard to expect the church to be that for somebody else.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I've got people right now that I know that they need 24-hour care
Sure.
or they're going off the deep end,
Sure.
and I can't give them 24-hour care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do we create that environment? How do we be that safe place to, because the 99 were at a place all day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week,
Yeah.
in the care of the Good Shepherd. I don't know how to create that because without it becoming some weird cult and let's get a compound somewhere,
Sure.
Right.
I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
But I want people to come in and know the love of the family of God and to have that need met. And for the people who have a tremendous need, a 24/7 need, the church in its current form can't meet that need.
Sure.
They need adoption or something like that into
Yeah.
an actual family.
Right.
Well, and then 24/7 need kind of can come to like a dependence in a way too, if it's not careful. But I guess I don't know the situation. I've seen some people try to like
Sure.
be like that person, and then once that person had to move on with their life, it falls short. So
Yeah, we've got just a bunch of people, that because I'm drawn, this parable to me is close to my heart. I'm drawn to the one,
yeah,
when I was first a pastor, I absolutely took this too far, and because coming out of a non-Christian background, I'm like, look, hey, you guys are all going to heaven. Why don't you quit your whining and get to work? There's all these people are going to hell. Like, we need to help them. It's like anyway.
Yeah.
I had a misunderstanding of that in the sense that I didn't then cultivate the gifts and the connection with the believers, because to me, I'm like, we're on a rescue mission to go help people, and we're not here to just massage each other's backs and talk about how hard life is and then not do anything, and so basically I just thought, hey, you're going to heaven, you should be happy with that. Let's get to work.
sure.
Quit your whining. You shouldn't need any like me, oh, you're doing so good. No. Let's just get to work. And so I failed to empower people to do the gospel themselves. Sure. I just sort of expected them to without helping them do that. Because I thought, oh, they're believers. They got this all figured out. Because again, coming from the outside, then you assume everybody who's a Christian is a mature, competent Christian. And then you get into it for a while and you're like, oh yeah, there's not a whole lot of mature, competent Christians.
We all need help to grow together.
Yeah. And so I misunderstood that, and I didn't cultivate the gifts and the skills and the community inside the church. And that was a significant failure. But we need to do that, and we need to notice the people on the outside at the same time. So it's a tough one.
I think if you communicate that culture to your church, right?
Yeah.
It's like almost going to be natural for the people, the congregants of the church, to just go reach out after the 99 because there's that culture that's there. Mm-hmm. And I think we've done a pretty good job of that at Good Hope.
Yeah, I think so. But I'm thinking of specific individuals right now. I mean, there's a guy with mental health issues and addiction issues that lives by himself.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. And that isolation combined with, easy access to chemicals and mental health issues, that person needs 24-hour care.
Sure.
And now is about, last I talked to him, was over 30 days into sobriety. I've known him for years and years, and it is on and off. And, but I go home. I go see him in his little efficiency apartment, and then I leave.
Yeah.
And now he's got weeks, maybe to shoot him a little, message or something. Mm-hmm. But he goes weeks in isolation. I can't meet that need.
Right.
And I can't, like, hey, we volunteer to bring someone into your home, or like,
I guess I don't know.
I know I don't have the answer for that, but I know that the heart of God is for that person.
Oh yeah.
And we need to keep seeking and keep looking for ways to help people rather than worrying about, I don't really like that song that we sang, and getting into fights over dumb stuff like that.
Right.
The church needs to really be focused on the one, having the heart of God for situations like this, and seeing the one that's missing instead of just focusing only on the ones that are there.
Yeah. It reminds me of when Jesus asked Peter, do you love me? And he says, yes. And he's like, okay, then take care of my sheep.
Yeah.
It's not like only the pastor's job to do it. It's if you love Jesus, then take care of the sheep.
Yeah, we're all believers in Jesus are under shepherds in one respect or another.
This parable it's a very big one.
It's huge.
And it's got
huge.
A lot of things surrounding it.
Yeah, I think it's one of course, there's so many wonderful parables, but it really captures the heart of God.
Oh, yeah.
The parable of the lost sheep. It's very, very powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
I've noticed that a lot of parables, it seems like Jesus is kind of like correcting the way the Pharisees were thinking. Like, they thought they had everything figured out, and they thought they were right. Like, I don't think they had a bad intention, but they thought they knew it all. Yeah. And Jesus is like, let me teach you this again, like what it really means to.
Yes, and that's so powerful because the Pharisees, the teachers of the law, the parallel to that is us. It's us not catching the heart of God.
Yeah.
The people who are pastors, the people who have been Christians a long time, teachers of the law is an interesting way of putting it. It should say theologians, like the people who teach about the truths of God.
Right.
So it should be pastors and theologians rather than Pharisees and teachers of the law, if we're going to use today's terminology. And that just means that we need to make sure that we don't only see things from our perspective, but that we see things from God's perspective, and we don't miss the heart of God. Because it's so easy. Because, I'm just thinking about that, like that guy that I was talking about, it's harder to do church when you include him than it is to do church when you exclude him.
Yeah. Wow.
It's easier to be successful at church.
Sure.
When that person isn't there.
From like a worldly perspective?
Or from a
like church growth
people coming to church, money being given, being able to do programs, being able to be successful. It's easier to do that. That person is not funding any ministries. That person is not, you know what I mean? Like, but that person is the goal.
Right.
100%.
And so
that's why people give money for ministries like that. It's like the heart behind it is to reach people like that.
Yeah, but you put 10 of them in the church service with them, and they're not going to want to bring their kids to church.
So
So it's weird.
Yeah.
I think that's probably where we can wrap this one up. We're getting it pretty soon. We're gonna slip into some sort of bizarre Christian nihilism, and we don't want to go there. We want to trust God and believe God to change lives and to be part of that process.
Oh, yeah.
And so, hallelujah for that, Pastor Tom. I can't believe the parable of the lost sheep dropped to number 10. You got
Thank
to
you, Jesus.
steal.
Not
We
next,
evaluate our picks. I think that is going to be probably the highest value pick in this list.
It was a good conversation.
Fantastic conversation. And I think things that we as believers can wrestle with because, and that's what these parables are about. It's about opening our eyes to deeper things and seeing things from God's perspective.
The heart behind it.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you for that pick and for a wonderful discussion. That is episode number 10. Next time, episode 11. Again, Pastor Tom gets to make his third round pick. So the control is in Pastor Tom's court.
Come on, Jesus.
And that'll be next time. Hope to see you then.